You're watching the Gog Pod. Today we have got Arran Hannah as our featured guest. How's it going today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic. Now, for those who are unaware of your great work, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. What exactly do you do?
So I work I was formerly kind of a freelance journalist with BBC News and BBC Sports Scotland. I have been doing that for the past year and a half, and I've just recently become an assistant producer for Sportscene. So I'll now be taking a wee step back from my freelance life and doing that until hopefully the end of the season. So still involved in football. They can't get rid of me just yet.
Quite right. In your opinion, what has been the most unexpected story you've had to cover?
Probably a very recent one, which was the death of Zaliukas when we were doing our Scottish Cup programme. It was kind of unexpected for a few reasons personally for me. Not so much, I think everybody was really shocked by that event, just in terms of how young he was, the fact that the day it was happening, obviously it was Derby Day. So it was just, everything about it was unexpected. But for me personally, I was putting together a fans VT the night before, which was the Friday night, and I was in the building until, oh God knows when, I was until early hours in the morning, and then I was back in quite early the next morning to do the programme. So I was in kind of working on this fans VT and had quite a lot of, Hibs, Hearts fans all contributing, and one of the questions was, what's your favourite goal? What's your favourite Derby goal? What's the one that sticks to your mind? And quite a lot of them picked ones from the 2012 Cup final between Hibs and Hearts. So we obviously at that time we went through all the archive footage, and when they were saying, this is my favourite goal, I was then trailing through archives. So I had to go and find all these goals. Quite a few of them said things that were like predating the 2000s. I was like, how am I meant to find this? So it was a bit, so hence why I was in the building until so late. But I remember I was looking through the 2012 footage, which we had, and I remember we kind of got to the full-time scenes. I was with a colleague at this point. We got to the full-time scenes, and I remember saying, look at how happy he looks. I remember kind of turning around to my colleague going, look at it, because he had tears in his eyes. I mean, anybody who's seen those full-time scenes will just remember it's so raw. And I kind of remember turning around and saying to him, look at that, look at how much it means to them. And remember thinking, how great is that? As a football fan, seeing people who love the game just as much as you do, regardless of the team, you just think that's, that passion, you can't beat it. And also because fans weren't in, this is the whole point of us doing these fans features on Sportscene, is to try and get fan engagement. And you just saw the elation and people, celebrating. And I was thinking, it sent shivers down my spine for a couple of reasons, mostly because seeing fans in a stadium after so long of not having them in, I was like, wow, that's amazing. And seeing everyone cheering. And I remember it just hitting a wee nerve, and it probably was a bit late at night, and I probably hadn't eaten a lot that day, but I remember it hitting a nerve at the time. So then when I was sitting in an edit suite the next day, and we also were doing the highlights programme because there was a full card on that weekend. So not only was the Scottish Cup programme going on, but we had several other games. I think I had Dundee United that day, and there was a couple of people working in suites next to me on the programme. And I just remember hearing the news after, seeing the news, and people running down the suites beside, and I just thought, oh, what's going on? Looked at it, seen it, and instantly it just struck a nerve. Like I don't know why. I think we've had quite a lot of bad news, and the chance to get to actually play out this Scottish Cup game was a good thing, and then for this to hit was really quite. It was quite hard, even for someone who maybe as I said, when they won the 2020, I wasn't old enough to know who he was, or I wasn't even old enough to know that it was happening. So I didn't really have much in it in terms of, but even I felt so touched. I think everyone on football that day felt touched by what happened. He was so young, and just the circumstances, the fact the game was going on, and the suite next to me who was working on the game then had to they had to work on a tribute. They had to, and I think I think we were on air at the time when it happened, or maybe just about to go on air, and we had pundits on the couch that played with Zaliukas. So them finding that out in that way, it just was awful. The whole thing was awful. And I remember, the first thing I did, pull up Twitter and I just saw the outpour of people heartbroken. And yeah, no, it was a really unexpected thing that happened, and I don't think anyone expected the way it would happen. But I mean, it really, really touched me when that, and obviously when we did end up going to the Scottish Cup final, we had a lovely tribute to him then as well. And I think a lot of people, I remember seeing a lot of people saying, it was great to see us still making that tribute. So yeah, it was a hard story to cover, I think, and you could see on I don't know if a lot of people will watch that Scottish Cup programme, and you could see the raw emotion on pundits' faces, on you just when we were talking about it. And yeah, I think that was a definitely unexpected one, just from the fact that I had been looking at the footage the night before and just turning to my colleague and saying, look how happy he looks, this is what football's all about. And then the next day to find out he was no longer with us. That was a hard one, for sure.
Absolutely. Like, we were on our show, because we do watch-alongs of basically any televised Scottish football. Yeah. We did a live show, and then we were getting comments left, right, and centre of people saying "Rip Zaliukas." I was like, what's happened? And we had to get Twitter up as well. And obviously, with us doing a fans version of a live show, obviously it wasn't as high pressure for us as it would have been for you, because of course you're actually the actual broadcaster of the game, so it's obviously going to be much more high pressure. But even at that, we're like, shit, how do we react?
Exactly.
Because
respond.
Because whatever's recorded, that's going to be staying there, and people will see whatever your reaction is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even at that, how do you respond? It wasn't that's above my pay grade to make the decision on how we respond, but it's a hard thing to do. I wouldn't want to be in the position where, because it's a very sensitive subject for a start, just with how young he is. He's probably got family who would go back and watch a programme like that. But you've also got fans where this means the world to them. And how do you respond to that? You need to deal with these situations really sensitively. And, especially as well, when you've got pundits on the couch that play with the guy, you have to be so sensitive in how you deal with these situations. And I remember, actually, when you're saying about the stream, I remember after the fact, I went on after kind of the game had finished and after I had finished my shift, I went back and watched Aaron Fraser's stream. Yeah. I went actually back and tried to find the point where he found out, because I think after he posted a tweet or something saying, I'm so sorry, I'm gutted and sorry about my response. And I thought, he's too nice a guy. Like, there's no way. Do you know what I mean? And I thought, and I remember kind of going back and looking at it, and he did nothing wrong. He was just rawly emotional. And I remember even feeling emotional watching him, thinking, that guy's he's found out that news. It's a guy that he idolises, a guy that he was speaking about in the VT that I had put together. I had asked him to film videos that week. A guy he was speaking about, probably obviously all of us none the wiser. Guy he idolises, passed away, and he saw that raw emotion, and I thought, my heart went out to him, just thinking, you're on a stream. It's hard. It's hard for even the most experienced of broadcasters, the most experienced of producers, to deal with these situations. Never mind if you're on a stream and you're found out by a comment. That's hard, especially if it's someone you idolise.
Like, the only way I can sort of relate to that situation was back season 07-08, when, because I'm a Motherwell fan, and Phil O'Donnell died while he was on the day that Motherwell were playing Dundee United. It was Christmas time, and just the way it happened, it sort of shocked the nation. So I mean, in that sort of sense, the only way I've got to sort of relate to that scenario was through the Phil O'Donnell tragedy.
And I think as well, when it does come so unexpected, when especially in Zaliukas' case, he was so young. And I know I've probably said that at least 5 times in the space of telling this story, but it's one of the most important bits about it. That's why we all even feel myself choking up. It's hard to think, how would you deal with that even as a family member? Never mind as, a fan. Never mind the fact that that day was about so much elation, especially considering what happened with Hearts. What happened with Hearts? They were now getting to play Hibs. They were not going to get a chance. Potentially not going to get a chance to do that again that season.
Yeah.
And that's the way a lot of them were looking at it anyways. I mean, regardless of whether they draw each other in the Scottish Cup, but that was again, or the League Cup or whatever it was, regardless of whether they draw them again, that was their chance, I think for many reasons, and obviously it goes on to win it. So but you could feel the atmosphere around that game, even not being at the game, and I think especially considering that was a moment where Hearts were having to step up to the plate. A lot of people were going, Hearts are going in as the underdogs here. And, a lot of people were, I think a lot of people underestimated how they were going to, because I don't think, a lot of people knew that SR Derby, they're going to come up, they're going to turn up to the big games. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of Hibs fans were going, Hampden, we've not got the best of records here. Like we could be in trouble. But I do think still, I think the bookies definitely, they underestimate. A lot of people were thinking it'll be a close game, it'll be tightly contended, but Hibs will edge it. Mm-hmm. And that's not how it turned out.
It was because of how Hibs had started the season as well. Because Hibs, like you can love them or hate them, but like they're one of the most annoying teams to have in your accumulator, because you're very confident that they're going to come through and get the 3 points or get through to the next round. And then next thing you know, their opposition scored, and you're just like, here we go again.
I know. And I think Hibs are a difficult one. There can be, I think, especially considering old firm teams as well, because I'm from Glasgow, quite a lot of the football I watch ends up being kind of old firm teams and just Glaswegian teams in general. That's the teams that I've grown up kind of around. But especially old firm teams even struggle going to Easter Road. And even you've got teams like Rangers who go, when we go to Pittodrie, we've just got some sort of, regardless of how bad Aberdeen are playing in the season, Rangers are like, yeah, we're going to Pittodrie and we're definitely going to lose. And Easter Road is a really hard place to go and get a win. Mm-hmm. They're just a team that grind out. They're a team that kind of usually grind out a win.
Yeah.
You're totally right, especially how they started the season. People were thinking, nah, the Hibs will edge it. And I think they did have a bit of a confidence, have a wee bit of a crisis of confidence after that. But they seem to be doing well just now. Obviously, Kilmarnock at the weekend, so seem to be doing all right. But yeah, that was just everything around the events of that cup final couldn't have been stranger. COVID couldn't have been stranger. The COVID, no fans. Us broadcasting it was hard because we had all these VTs that we were doing. We had to make them look nice, but really weren't really able to do much because we're not able to go out and broadcast in the way we usually do. So yeah, just everything around the events of that cup final were strange.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We'll move on to the next question. What's the most valuable thing you've picked up so far in your career? Now that can be merchandise or it can be advice.
Oh, you've thrown that as a curveball. That was on my list.
I thought of it today. I thought, you know what?
That's a curveball, isn't it?
I think you'll be able to answer this, but I threw that in.
Most. Probably wait for that silence. Probably really. My windows aren't as strong as I thought they were. That was really loud. No, so I think one of the most. I can't pick a bit of memorable advice off the top of my head, and I know I've been given a lot. I know I have been given tons of advice, but I can think of some memorable people.
Yeah,
I've got a lot of memorable people that have supported me throughout my career. A lot of people who, when I'm unsure about something, they're the first people I'll send a WhatsApp message to and go, I'm not really sure about this. Or, I think with the BBC in general, through coming in on an apprenticeship scheme, which is how I came into my work, a lot of people in that building really looked out for me. And especially considering, even now I'm still early on in my career. I've only been doing what I'm doing for the past 2 years. So, and being at the BBC was my first ever job. I hadn't worked in a supermarket. I hadn't worked in, so I was very much coming into this, I had to learn how to work the printers. Like, it was very much like going from very rock bottom to so a lot of the advice I've been given is, use that printer and that one will print what you want. And then a lot of the advice has been probably more important than that. But I think the best bit of advice I've been given is be yourself, in terms of like, you need to be unequivocally yourself. Don't apologize for it, but also don't be afraid to ask for advice. Don't be afraid to ask someone's opinion, because at the BBC, our editorial standards are so high, and we have to, maybe more than other broadcasters, or maybe slightly more than other newspapers, or we have to really fact check what we're talking about. And I think for me, even though as a female in sport especially, you can maybe feel a wee bit disheartened by having to go for advice, everyone still asks advice. It's not just a me thing. It's like, I've got guys that come into my suite that's been doing it twice as long as me and go, can you have a look at this penalty instant? I'm not really sure if I need to put it in my, putting your ego aside and going, listen, do you think that just consulting someone else can be so important? It can be the difference between making a really big mistake and and getting something right. And I think that's really important, because that's the most important thing in what we do, is making sure we know as much as possible, and that we can put things out that are factually accurate and that are right. So I think that's my advice for anyone really trying to get into the media industry, because I lean on a lot of people in my building. I've got, when I was just saying that, I was thinking, how many people, I've got a lot of people, memorable people that come to my brain, but the list just goes on. Like, I've got so many people in that building that I am so thankful for, so thankful that I can talk to every day, so thankful to that I can send them a message and that they'll reply, like, and they won't make me feel bad about it. I've got so many people that have looked out for me. So it's my advice for anyone even wanting to get into the media industry is, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to send that message, or to go get that coffee, or to do that, because these are the things that build your relationships with the people you're working with, but also that make sure, you can be better in the future, and these things in the future.
Yeah, quite right. Because well, for me, one of my best bits of advice was, it was quite hard, but it was from my lecturer at Sunderland Uni. Basically, what I'd done for one of my bits for my coursework was, I did a whole report on the whole COVID case between the sort of Hearts, Partick Thistle, Stranraer going down. So it was really difficult. And I basically went through a sort of timeline of all the events that happened. So I even included stuff like Auchinleck Talbot were 7 games behind everyone else, and they'd been given the league because it went by points average. So I basically wrote down everything that happened in the timeline of about 3 months. I had to make it a 5-minute piece, and I said to Andrew, my lecturer, look, there's bits here that I think are far too important to leave out. He said, one of the biggest things I learned when I was on the job was, I had 2 pieces to do as news, and I said to my editor, look, I don't know which one I want to do, or which one I can't, which one I have to do. And he basically, the editor just said to him, right, this one I'm putting in the bin, because people don't know until you've said it on officially what the actual news is.
Yep. Well, the thing is, like, I even practice that, and every day I practice that bit of advice that you've been given. Especially, I even can think about the weekend just there. I was doing Hamilton Dundee United. Don't know if you saw the game. Don't know if you watched the 0-0. So I obviously, I got a great game to do over the weekend. It was, I mean, even both managers said at the end of the game that it wasn't very good to watch, like, at all. I don't think any of the, I think it was hard. I don't even know. I didn't check the stats afterwards because I was so happy to be rid of it. But I don't think any team had a shot on target. So you can imagine me sitting in an edit suite thinking, Anna, you put 5 minutes of this out. I think, no, 6 minutes of this out on Sportscene. I was like, what am I going to do? I don't even have chances here. Like, I don't have anything. And I remember we were reversioning for the Sunday programme because we put out we put out on the highlights, and then we do a shorter version for the Sunday as a recap. And I remember I was kind of saying to my editor, I was like, there was a penalty instant, right? There was a penalty instant. They thought it might be a penalty instant, but no one was talking about it because no team thought they deserved to win. So nobody talked about it. Nobody cared. I remember thinking, I was like, do I take that penalty incident out, like that kind of half penalty, half not really that significant within the game? And I remember going, well, for a start, they've seen it on the Saturday, so I'm kind of covered in that way. They've seen it, but also what the viewer doesn't see won't hurt them unless it's a massive incident that you've missed and everyone's seen it on the Saturday, and then they tune into the Sunday programme and they go, where's this massive incident that we saw? Or even if they've watched the programme, for example, if it's been live on Sky, and there's been a big incident that you've missed and you read it on the Saturday night, it's not looking good for you. That's a big error to make, and I've not made one of those yet, touch wood, but they can be quite bad if you, for example, miss a penalty instant or miss a significant chance, because it can be really hectic, especially on a Saturday. It can be so hectic, and you can sometimes go away from your computer, and if you've missed something, it's our job to make sure we don't do that. But yes, in principle, it's definitely true that if what the viewer doesn't see kind of won't hurt them in terms of, and especially with things like cutaways. I'm like, I really like that cutaway to put over a manager shot, and sometimes I'm just like, why are you bothering about that? That's so insignificant. Like, this really nice artsy cutaway that I've got, I'm like, I really like that. And then people are thinking, and I'm like, the viewer doesn't care about your cutaways. The viewer just wants to watch the football. They don't care about your cutaways. So yeah, no, it can be.
I completely get it, because like I want to show off how artistic I can be while editing as well. So I completely feel for you there.
It's a labour of love. You're like, I love that cutaway. I want to put it in. And you find yourself labouring over it. You're like, I really need to find somewhere for this. And then you just go, what am I doing? I've spent 15, 20 minutes of my time trying to fit this in. I'm like, nobody cares. So yeah, it's definitely knowing when to think, like, okay, this is done, it's broadcastable, just put it out sort of thing, rather than trying to make it the best it possibly can be. Obviously, as a perfectionist, like, trying to make it the best it possibly can be. And you thinking, oh, I took that chance out. And then you're thinking, well, it's a nil-niller. I took that chance out. It's a nil-niller. Neither team thought they did well. Both managers didn't think it was very interesting to watch. And they've actually got something in the game. And nobody thought they should win. I was like, so nobody's going to care if there's a non-shot on target that's not in the Sunday edit that they've seen on the Saturday night. So you have to be quite pragmatic about it. That's good advice your lecturer gave you, for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's helped me over the last 6 months, because I've had so many vlogs to edit while I've been traveling the country during this coronavirus pandemic.
Oh gosh, I know. I'm lucky I've even got to still go to some of the go to a couple of the games.
I know. I've been to 2 matches since the whole COVID thing, because I've done some help with Tayport, one of my local teams here, because I'm based in Fife, and one of the games I actually ended up having to referee the second half because the referee was injured at half time.
That's COVID for you. That's COVID for you. These things are happening.
And we had the games recorded, right? And it turns out that I completely missed a penalty decision.
Oh no. I'm talking about not putting penalty decisions in edits, and you've missed one. I stole what?
What happened, right? The ball's coming in, I'm watching the ball, and what I don't see through a crowd of players, because of where I'm based, like, I'm like at the corner of the box, and I don't see at the back stick the attacker's being pushed by the defender, and he's not even fallen to the ground. So So nothing helps me at all.
Oh gosh, I would not want to be you that day. I wouldn't.
Definitely was not worth talking about. Anyway, moving on to the next question. Growing up as a football fan, I was always mesmerised by Sportscene and how they always had so many people covering X amount of games over the course of the day. Same as the sort of Gillette Soccer Saturday. Like, I lived for that when I couldn't go to a football match. Like, that was my one highlight of the week if I wasn't going to the Motherwell game. So I sort of wanted to replicate that format on our show, because like what we did during like the Champions League group stage, there'd be 6 games on at 8 p.m. and we basically got as many people as we could on the stream and we'd all cover a game. What's an average day in your life when you're actually doing that, when you're assigned a game? Like, for example, if you're going to a Wraith Rovers game or something like that.
Yeah, so your kind of average day, you start off, you're packing a bag. The first thing I do always is pack a bag, and you've got like, you know, a breakfast bar and things to just keep you going for the day, because quite a lot of time you're not really gonna have, you don't have time to stop, eat, do things like that. But the first thing you'll do after that is prep. So a lot of prep goes into kind of, I sometimes do some prep the night before, but you'll start to find out teams and stuff as the day's going on. So it can give you a better idea of when you're doing it in the morning. It can give you a better idea of, you know, what stats are going to work for it. So you're looking at stats. You're looking at the last time these two teams played. The last game I covered was Morton Alloa. It's the first championship game of the season. So it was with loads of us out, as you can imagine, everyone at a championship game, everyone at a Prem game. It was just loads of people out at the football. And yeah, no, so I was, that morning also was Old Firm Day. This was obviously back in, this wasn't just the most recent one, it was the one before that. So I was sitting in the morning prepping in my living room whilst, you know, Sky Sports was on and everyone was watching the football. So I wasn't watching the football really because I was too busy prepping. So yeah, you look at stats, you look at things like that, just anything really. I've usually got kind of one A4 notepad just full of things that I can reference, which was fine. And then you have to check your ISDN. You need to check that's working before you go. I'll check that way before the morning of. I'll check that a couple of days before, but you like to just give it a once over in the morning just to make sure nothing goes wrong when you get there. And then, throw everything in the car, and 90% of the time you're making some ridiculous drive. So like Morton, for me, going to Morton's like 35 minutes. I'd done Livy before, which was like 40 minutes in the car. This was pre-COVID, so sometimes there's traffic and stuff. So then you're getting in the car, and every time I go to one of these games, I've got sports sound on in the car the whole drive, and listening to like anything, just any wee bits of information that I need to know. But on said Morton Day, obviously the only thing that was on Sports Sound was commentary for the Old Firm. That was the only thing that was on. Nobody was talking about anything else. It was just Liam McLeod's commentating over the Rangers Celtic game. So that was fine. But I remember I kind of left the house and I said, right, I need to go. I didn't have time to watch the end of I think it was into the second half. I said, I don't have time to watch the end of it. I was like, but I'm gonna nip off. Let me know if anything happens. Like, let me know. And I literally got into the car after putting everything in the boot. My dad comes running out, telling me that something's happened, and I just went, I can't believe that. I was like, I've just get in the car. So I turned on the car and I quickly put on Sports Sound, and I can just hear the end of Liam McLeod screaming, like telling me everything that happened. I just thought, of course. But no, that was obviously the last thing on my mind that day. So I was then driving down to Greenock. You then have to find somewhere to park. I know that sounds really stupid. Sounds so stupid. But see finding somewhere to park, that can be one of your biggest challenges. Or like parking in a car park and walking with this so heavy an ISDN kit. I'm not the strongest of people. I'm sure a lot of my other journalist pals can lift an ISDN and not think about it, but for me it's really heavy. So you're hovering this ISDN down some road you've never walked on. and just trying to find an entrance to a stadium somewhere, anywhere. And then you'll go in and you'll start doing like pre-match interviews. In the case of Morton, I didn't have to do any pre-match interviews because the programme was so packed. Old Firm, everything was just so much going on. But went up, set up my ISDN. I had some problems, as always. It's never easy with these things. You can never just plug it in and it works. It's always something that's happening. And then, kick off. So it was Morton Alloa. Actually, one of my friends from school was playing his first game for Alloa that day, which was really nice. And you usually, if you're on kind of open all mics, or if you're on Sportscene results, sometimes you're doing, obviously most of the time you're doing both, but you'll be on open all mics, you'll have to give some level of team news, how many changes, who's playing. Then it's goals, so that are big significant instance like red cards, so penalties, goals, all that. So you're watching the game, you're also having to write down what's happening because you're writing an online piece. So it's very much a multitasking affair. Like you're writing but watching but listening to the producer and listening to everything that you can hear with the programme and you can hear the producer. So it's a lot of multitasking. I think it takes a lot of getting used to it. I don't even think I'm fully used to it. Like I don't really get that nervous going on air, but in those sort of situations I still get nervous, like just because of the amount that can go wrong. I think because you're out in the sticks, like you're out with an ISDN. If that fails, you've not got an engineer and anyone that can help you. It's just kind of so I still feel a bit nervous when I do these games, just thinking, something's inevitably going to go wrong, but it never really does. But then you're just commentating over, you're just doing goals and stuff, so you'll shout to your producer when something happens, there's been a goal at Capital, there's been a goal here, and they'll come to you and you've got seconds to summarise what you've just seen. You've got less than seconds. You've probably got enough time to pick up a pen, scribble like something. 90% of the time you won't be able to read what you've written, and then literally just splurge everything that you've just seen. So yeah, it's not the most difficult job in the world, but it's not easy to like get in the swing of doing that, especially if you're used to, as a journalist, kind of having time to sit and write your pieces, or having time to edit and having time to do all that. So it's definitely not, and especially open all mics, you're just supposed to scream when something happens. Like open all mics, obviously I know you'll listen to it, but you're just like, there's been a goal here, just scream, and like you're just always faded up, and you just think, oh god. So yeah, I have a lot of respect for my colleagues who have been doing this for
years,
the amount of time they've been doing, because honestly I find it like, it's so nerve-wracking, and it's obviously easy to make a mistake, but the worst thing that can happen to you is if you're too busy writing and you've missed a goal, or you've missed a penalty, or you've missed a red card. Now this has happened to me, and it happened to me on my first one. I did Livy Wraith Rovers in the Scottish Cup. So already,
I remember that.
Yes. Oh no. Right. So you wouldn't have known, but I missed it. I was sitting writing. I was on my laptop, sitting writing up what I was kind of like pars. I think it was kind of late in the second half. Next minute, you hear cheering, and I was like, oh no. And I was here looking around, and I just see them celebrating, and I was thinking, no. I was like, I've missed it. So I was like, what do you do in that situation? So I pure fires up Twitter. I'm like, hopefully there's some really savvy media guy here that's seen that and going to tweet it really quickly. Nothing. And I ended up having to turn around. There was actually a journalist behind me, and I was like, please tell me what's just happened. I was like, who scored? I was like, because I kind of seen it, but I was like, who scored it? And they told me, and I was like, okay, there's been I had to say it to my producer, and basically just kind of half seen it but didn't see who scored. And it's that way where you go into pure panic. Like I seen them celebrating but didn't think to, like, I was too panicked to think, actually identify, because it's a big group of them, so you just, obviously in COVID times they're not really allowed to celebrate like that, but like in that time they're all hugging each other, and you just think, who is it? I can't identify who this is in this crowd. So yeah, that's happened to me, and those situations are like so nerve-wracking. But when I listened back to it, because I listened back to my first one, I didn't listen back to Morton, but I definitely listened back to my first one. you can't tell. Like, it just sounds like I knew who scored. I kind of saw the instant, but I didn't see who scored it.
You covered yourself very well.
Yeah, you do cover it. You cover it well, but there's been a few, like, you know, you sometimes make a mistake. You can hear it, and that is the fun of it. Even like the most experienced of guys, sometimes will do that. They're sitting writing, you miss an instant. It's easy. It's so easy to do, but on your first one, it can kind of knock your confidence. But yeah, that's a typical day in a reporting. Then you go and you do post-match interviews, and I think when I was at Morton Alloa, we got a great post-match interview. For that, I think there had been a few contentious instances. There was a red card. There was all sorts. So managers are pretty riled up when they came and spoke to me. So that was good. And you then have to go back to your car and you get the heating up on full blast. You can't feel your fingers, but you're trying to write a copy back to the BBC. You're trying to write, so you have to listen to the interview and start typing it all up, and the Bluetooth in your car is going messed up and you can't hear anything. So it's the cold. The cold is the worst bit about doing these. It's like you're coming back, you're trying to, and your hands are seizing up while you're trying to write back what the interview's about. Yeah. So yeah, but there's so much fun to do, and like I still feel really privileged to be even been able to do one during the COVID pandemic, during these times. Being able to go to a game, that's amazing. But they are quite nerve-wracking even still.
Yeah, I can imagine, because we've even seen on Soccer Saturday, you see Chris Kamara with the Anthony Van Den Bora gate.
That was amazing. That clip is the best. It's the best.
But at least now you can actually feel sorry for him, because you've been in a similar scenario.
We've all had them though. There's been every week there's one of them where you're even they'll be like, oh, and sometimes the presenter will throw to you, they'll see the score change, right? And sometimes you give yourself if you've not seen it fully, in that time, I gave myself 30 seconds to actually work out what was happening, checking Twitter, refreshing Twitter, trying to see, if anyone said anything. But you obviously when you just see a goal, you're able to just go, yeah, there's been a goal here. But sometimes it'll be like, oh, our reporter Arran, there's been a goal, and you're like, yeah, there's been a goal here. It's been such and such who have scored. I'm not 100% sure how they. You've heard people. I've not done it, but you've heard people go, yeah, I'm not 100% sure what happened in this penalty instant, but they've definitely got a penalty. I'm not sure if it should have been awarded, and you can just hear them waffling, and it's good fun. Obviously, the audience at home, I think, and kind of enjoy those moments where we're all just a bit I don't really know what happened there, but as being the person who's making the mistake, it's a nightmare. I managed to carry off my first one well, but I wouldn't want to try it again.
But you know who's to blame here? It's Flash scores, because they are so far ahead of everyone else.
I know. The thing is as well, if you find out who scores, that's fine. Sometimes, obviously, when they're celebrating, you'll know who's scored. But it's if you've missed the whole incident in itself, you just start a bit, especially if it's a penalty incident, or if it's a red card or something like that. That's like a flash and you miss it sort of thing. So if you've just looked down for a second, a goal, you can kind of know when that's building up, or sometimes not, but if it's a cross in the box or whatever, you can kind of know when that's going to happen, but you can anticipate that. But if it's a Scott Brown last night, you could have blinked and missed that. You couldn't. Do you know what I mean? If you've looked down at your laptop or your phone, or you're typing something, that's gone in a flash, and you have not got a clue what's happened. You don't get the. I get a replay now on my instances. When I'm doing match edit, I get you don't get a replay when you're there. You don't get a screen coming up with a replay, which would be great, by the way. We would love that. But you don't get a super slow replay up at this, so you're just having to go off on instant.
Oh yeah, because see the game between Rangers and Celtic at Hampden in the Betfred Cup, when that goal was offside, it was about half a foot offside. I was actually at the game as a neutral, because I'd been given tickets by Mitre, because they they think I'm a great Scottish creator.
Oh!
I know it was the biggest compliment I've received from any sort of business deal in my life. So they were like, as you're our favourite Scottish creator, there is proof of this, by the way. I'm not just saying it to show
You see the proof. I need to see the proof.
I'll show you afterwards. They said, we're going to give you first refusal on 2 complimentary hospitality tickets for Rangers against Celtic on Sunday. I was like, holy shit. So I got my dad on the phone. I was like, right, I've got 2 tickets for Sunday. What do you want to go to Hampden with me? He was like, absolutely. So we had a day out to Glasgow together, and where we were sitting right behind the journalists, in comfier seats than the journalists, with TVs right in front of us.
And you're warmer than the journalists, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the guy that was sitting in front of me that had a massive notepad, he didn't even write anything.
No.
Sometimes watching the TV.
Sometimes thought was at the window and those things. You're just like, at my notepad is a sight for sore eyes. If you looked at one of my notepads from a game, you'll see my nice prep notes, which are lovely and neat and well written, and then you'll see my game notes, which are just like everywhere, like sideways, like just not. You can't make sense of them when you're looking back on. You're just like, what is that even? What are you even trying to say there? Especially like YouTube, I scribble, like you have to do like a full-time sum up, and I like scribble, okay, like what's happened. You should scribble your full-time sum up, which you do really quickly, like you do it like just before, like I'll do it usually like 5 minutes before the game finishes. Great when obviously nothing happens, but you've got like a 91st minute and you're just like, oh no, and you have to write everything again. It's just like your notes just become, they're not even worth looking at again. So just go in the bin.
Would you prefer like a 0-0 where nothing's happening, so you've got an easy shift, or do you prefer a 4 each draw?
No, 4 each draw. 4 each draw, 2 red cards, and a penalty instant. You want the game. You want the game.
And someone falling out the stand as well.
Something's happened. The manager's been sent off. I mean, I actually had that in one of our games. You know, like you just think. So honestly, I've been in the mill with my games, but yeah, definitely you're wanting a 4-4 draw. You're wanting the most action possible. Especially like see a 0-0er. See if you're. I've not had the job. I don't even want to know who. Good luck to whoever was at Hamilton Dundee at the weekend. Like the game I was at AP in. Yeah. Whoever was there for Sportscene, like honestly, I probably should find out and just give them my condolences. See if you're trying to work. See if you're trying to say something about that game. It's hard. Like it was a hard game. I'm not slating Hamilton or Dundee. It was just a terrible game. We've all got terrible games of football. It's just the most recent terrible game of football I've watched. Just in case I get some sort of hate from like Hamilton Dundee fans, right? Just disclaimer. But see when you're at a game like that where there's been like no shots on target or like there's been nothing at all contentious, you're just a bit like, how do you sum this up? We'll go to a reporter in Hamilton. What's been happening? You're like, nothing. There's been a half chance for such and such, but still no shots on target. Like that's hard. Full-time sum up. You're like, well, still no shots on target, and yeah, couple of half chances. You know, it's just it.
It's the same.
Awful. I'm sure you'll have experience of doing streams where nothing has happened, and you're just thinking, I have to talk about this. You'll have to talk about it for the full 90 minutes. I don't. I'm fine. I've got like a couple of 30-second hits here and there. You're a full 90 minutes.
The only saving grace is the chat, the live chat we've got. But I would say usually the games that I hate the most is usually when Rangers take the lead early on and then they just see the game out. I'm just like, yeah, boring. Like the 8-0 against Hamilton was fine because there was 4 goals in both halves.
Yes.
But when they win a game 2-0 and they score both their goals in the first 20 minutes, it's just
that Rangers 8-0 Hamilton. I was working a social media shift that day. I don't know why. I think someone from social had called in sick and they'd asked me to cover the shift. And it's like when you're working social media, like you're like tweeting the goal updates on BBC Sports Scotland, and you have to at least sum up and then the goal graphic and stuff. And like it was getting to the end. I'll actually look back on it, but it was getting to the end where I was like, and Rangers have scored again. Can you believe it? Because we can. And then it's like 4 minutes later, and 4 minutes later, Rangers have scored again. And you're like, honestly, it was mental. I remember watching it thinking, surely not. Oh yes, they have. Like you just can't believe that game in general was absolutely mental. But for me, tweeting goal updates, I remember one of the people replied, because I think there'd been two goals in like 3 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And someone replied to one of my tweets being like, this happened 5 minutes ago. I was like, give me a chance to catch up. I was like, I'm tweeting every 30 seconds here. I was like, I'm just giving, and also there's other games going on as well. I was like, give me a chance. Wow. Someone responded to the tweet going, this happened 5 minutes ago, BBC catch up. I'm like, I'm BBC today. I am BBC account, and I am really struggling to catch up with all these goals. So please give me a break. Like there's 8 of them to get through.
Oh dear. We'll move on to the next question. What was your first experience you can remember supporting the national team?
Oh, I think I got into football because I watched football with my dad. Mm-hmm. And I think that's
who did he have a team he supported?
Aye. He'll have to. We'll get my dad on. He can tell me what team he supports. But we'll get my dad on. But no, I've watched the football with my dad since I was high. I remember my dad taking me to my first game. I remember my dad taking me to, and he's also he got me into kind of like rugby and stuff like that. I remember vividly going to the rugby with my dad. We actually had a season ticket for the Glasgow Warriors, which was round the corner from my house, and we'd walk on a freezing cold Friday round after school, like, and you'd go and watch. So yeah, because that was more accessible for us. And I think, to be fair, when I was growing up, we did a lot of watching the football on the couch and a lot of going to the rugby, because I think when I was a wee girl, he didn't really want to like take me to grounds really, especially in the sort of Glasgow, in the old firm kind of Glasgow way of things. Like it's not exactly. He never really thought it was a very, very good environment for a young girl, which I think is fair. But I did a lot watching the football with my dad on the telly, and I think memorable moments in terms of Scotland, like a lot of them happened when I was really, really young. Like I mean, you're talking about Thaddy Wondergoal, right? But I was 7. So I remember, like, I have a lot of memories of sitting on the couch watching it with my dad, but physically recounting the games, I struggle with. I mean, we talk about it quite a lot, and I know I definitely watched that game with my dad. I think there's a photo of me and my dad sitting on the couch, and I think I had like Scotland face paint, Scotland flags face painted on my face. So I definitely remember kind of watching these games, but my most memorable Scotland game is the recent ones, is what just unfolded a couple of months ago, because I think they're most memorable for me in many ways. I think what we're talking about, that round of fixtures, build up to the Nations League, Serbia, blah blah. That round of fixtures was the most important Scotland game for 20 years. I'm 20, so
I'm 21.
So there's been Scotland games, right? But when you think about memorable ones past the 07-08, you've not really got much to recall on, do you? Nah. And I think I was on BBC Radio Scotland talking about it on the morning of the Serbia game, and they were just doing it on what does it mean to fans? I was like, this means everything to fans, but also it means even more so to a new generation of fans, people like you and I who haven't really had the chance to grow up watching Scotland, because there's not really been that much going on. And all we know about Scotland squads is the stuff our dads tell us, is the stuff our mums and our dads and our grannies and our grandpas, like this is stuff that they tell us. It's the stuff that predates the 2000s. It's you're watching the archive games. So definitely that's kind of, for me, one of the most memorable is this recent round of fixtures. And I'm pretty sure I worked every single game. I think I did. I worked every single game in the building in PQ. So especially even getting to work the Serbia game, I was gassed. I was like, I can't believe growing up as like someone who's watched Scotland, growing up as someone who just loves football, getting to work on the coverage of this game, I could not believe it. I was pinching myself. I think with a lot of those boys as well, a lot of the boys in the Scotland squad were quite young, and I think you'll know yourself. You watched quite a lot of those. You watch quite a lot of those players. Like they are kind of our generation of. They're our generation of Scotland.
I would say so.
Yeah, so they are kind of young guys. They're the guys that we've kind of grown up watching, very much so for the past, especially for the past kind of few years. But they're the guys that stick in our minds, even just from the league, and we're getting to watch them on a national stage. So they are our version of this. That's our team, sort of thing. So that was a nice moment as kind of like a young person that's not really been able to watch a lot of really, really important Scotland games. To then see boys we've watched growing up, boys we've watched playing for teams around Scotland, then actually go and do it on a national stage. It's definitely the best moment, as any Scotland fan will tell you. It's easily up there, the best moment ever, for sure.
100%. It's customary every podcast I show this off to my podcast guest. It is a signed artwork of Faddy scoring that wonder goal.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing! See, the thing is though, that is easily, if not the Serbia game, that's the most memorable moment.
There you go.
That is right. If you have to say yours, like I'm sure it's probably that. Like
that 100%. But there is a story. When I was I had a really strange thing that. Every time Scotland won in a really important game, when I was growing up, I would lose a milk tooth. It started when we beat the Faroe Islands 6-0. Right. It happened again when we beat France. It happened again when we beat Ukraine. It was just really strange. It just happened all the time. But yeah, that was a thing that was like
such a good story.
No, but every month or so, like when I was like 7, 8, 9, like I would get a new adult tooth in the night that Scotland would go and win a really important.
So that was your positive omen. If you went to sleep and there was no.
Not just that though, because whenever it was a big game in Scottish football, for example, when Rangers beat Fiorentina on penalties, when Scotland beat France. The game in Paris, because it was a midweek night, my mum would send me up to bed, and because on my staircase there's like a wee gap you can see the TV from, so I would just creep down and I would sit on the staircase watching the game, and when Faddy scored that goal, I let out the biggest cheer ever, and I just ran straight to bed.
Get up the stairs. I know I get in trouble. Oh no, I remember. It's the bit. Even watching it again, like I even mentioned it when I was talking about on that Serbia game. I was like, you talk about these moments, like, the Faddy wonder goal. Like, no matter how many times I watch that, I'm still like, oh, that's amazing. Like, you just can't. You just think such a good moment. And he's also so humble about it. It's ridiculous. He's like,
no,
he spoke about it the other night at the Morton game on the telly. He was just like, I didn't really do much. You'll know my feelings about that. And I was like, what? What do you do much? Like, he did that on TV.
You could literally get a knighthood for that goal.
Easily. He should have some sort of MBE, OBE, something like that. He should be
ONG.
But yeah, no, that's a memorable one for sure. But at the end of the day, I was 7, so like I can't physically recount sitting watching it. I can't really remember, like, I can't really remember much. You know yourself, like it's that you're so young that at that point I was like 6, 7. So yeah, I do remember like the whole lead up to it. I kind of remember watching the football with my dad, but no matter how many times I watch that goal, it'll never not be amazing. And especially like, say, I remember I rewatched the programme. So we put out we put the programme, the highlights, I rewatched the Serbia programme at least 3 times the next day. I actually rewatched it so many times, rewatched the whole thing. I'd seen it, I'd watched the whole game in the building, and I watched it 3 times the next day, and all of us were the same. We were all just rewatching all the best moments.
Yeah, like I interviewed Fadi when I was like 15 or 16 for the channel, and I was lucky because my uncle was Motherwell team doctor at the time, so it was one of the times that Fadi was at the club, and I was just like, because he was injured, I was just like, I can't believe I'm sitting next to James McFadden, just interviewing him and we're now on first name terms. It's just completely bizarre.
It is bizarre. Like, I mean, he's always on. He's on Sportscene all the time, and he was at obviously Greenock the other day. Like, you do think obviously he is like a national hero, and sometimes like, because obviously I see these guys like every weekend. I see Fadi at least every week. He's on Sportscene a lot. Like, so I see him most weekends. But for the first, I remember like when I was first an apprentice, like when I was first just got into the, I don't think I've told him this story, obviously not, but like I remember when I was first an apprentice, the first time I saw him in the building, I was like, that's James McFadden. Like, I gasped, like, that's James McFadden. I was like, I'm breathing the same air as James McFadden. What the hell?
Like, one time when I was a guessing off the ball once, right? So.
What?
You know how you go into Pacific Key and then you're at the reception desk, and then I glanced over the desk and I saw X amount of passes. One was from the guy that had a massive role in Star Wars. There was another big name, and there was so on and so forth. I was just like, they're not coming in to be on off the ball with me, are they?
I know. Oh God, I know. It honestly, like, now during the pandemic, there's like hardly anybody comes into the building, which is obviously, it's upsetting. Like, we would love to get people in and getting interviews and all sorts, but during this pandemic, we're just limited footfall. Like, it's basically just essential staff and essential like people who are on the telly, basically, like, are for our program. But like you do. Like, I remember one. I remember one day walking down the hallway, and Graham Norton walked past me, and I was like, I pure was like, what has just gone on? Like, I know that's not a big name in football, right?
Oh,
but like, it's Graham Norton. You're like, why are you here? Like, why are you in Scotland for a start? Like, I've never seen you before in my life. It's like, why are you in Scotland? And like, for a second, like, you're Graham Norton. It's like people like that. You just can't. There's been I've brought people in personally, like people like Sam Fender, nicest guy in the world.
Amazing. I love his hypersonic missiles.
Exactly right. So Sam Fender, easily nicest guy on the planet. Like, I've brought him through the building because I worked in music when I was an apprentice, so I got to bring in some like quite big people. And I remember you have to just act like that. And most of the time they are just normal people, but when you see these big names walking into the building, like, you don't really get starstruck. But when you go home and you think about it, you're like,
oh my God,
I would walk around the building with Sam Fender. Like, another person like KSI, and Randolph, we walked around with. Because I got him on Radio 1 Takeover. I got him on Radio 1 Takeover. We've got the Vamps came in again. I brought them through the building, which obviously weren't my cup of tea. Lewis Capaldi, he came in for key sessions. Just so many big people, and some like these people genuinely sometimes just walk down the hallway, and you're like in the middle of doing some match edit. Your head's in football, and you're walking past someone, and you just go, "That Lewis Capaldi?" Like, you're like, what? Not so much now, but like back then, you could just walk in. Anyone could be walking in the building. Anyone. So
I'll move on to the next question before we go on any more.
What I know.
Where were you the night Scotland qualified for the Euros?
Oh, I was in Pacific Key. I was in Glasgow. I was in the building. I was working on the programme, which at first, like, even just in that in itself, I was so excited about to get to work on that programme. I could not believe it. And I was working in the spare suite on interviews and I think closer and stuff. So we were kind of busy throughout it, and so we were really quite busy, but the game's on and you can hear the commentary and see the equaliser. I dropped to the ground of my edit suite, like as if someone had died. I dropped I swear to God, I got out my chair like I'm sitting just now and fell to the ground. My editor was like, what's going on? Saw it happen, and I was just sitting on the ground with my hands in my head like this. I think I tweeted saying it was the worst heartbreak of my life. I still agree with everything I said in that tweet. It was the worst heartbreak I'd ever felt. I remember just thinking, this is it. They've fluffed it again. I was like, this is it. Typical Scotland. We're like, typical, do you know what I mean? You were just like, we're going to lose this now. Like, there's no way. And you had all your best players just sitting on the bench. And we were like, oh, so you've got like, you were just, I can't even tell you how bad it was. Like, everyone knows how bad it felt. But then having to pick yourself up and going, because we had a Scotland win closer and a Scotland lose closer. So the Scotland win closer had happy music and the Scotland lose closer had less happy music. Because we thought we'll make two versions. And I remember we were working on the happy closer. Obviously, it was getting closer. I think this is it. We've won it. You're getting close. You're thinking, hopefully, this is it. We keep it. You're very hopeful at that point. Then that when that goal went in, my editor, like unbeknownst to him at the time, like I think it was a subconscious thing he did, but he clicked from this sad closer, the happy closer over to the sad closer, and I heard a flash of the sad music, and I was like, don't play that to me just now. I was like, it's too raw. Go back to the happy closer. We're still going to win. I was like, no, I don't want to hear it. We're still going to win. We have to win. So yeah, but I remember when he just clicked over to it, I was like, what are you doing? Don't do that. I don't need to hear that just now. I'm too heartbroken. But yeah, when obviously it went to penalties, which was, to be fair, one of our worst fears about the programme in general, because penalties were finished, I think it was like 30 seconds or a minute before we went on air. So the pundits like had every chance of going on air and not knowing what the result had been. And like Tomo and the pundits might not have known. So it was tight, because we were thinking if this turnaround, gets our programme had to be turned around like that, especially when it went to penalties, because then you've filled your programme with, say you've got like a 10-minute edit of each half, or say you get 20, like say you get, each half is, you're doing a 20-minute edit overall. When it goes to penalties, you then need to cut from your edit. Like you need to cut from, because you've not got the allocation, like the broadcast time. The programme's still the same length, but you've now got to add in penalties. So the people who did the first and second half then had to cut stuff from their first edit, like from the highlights, to fit in the penalties. And then it went to interviews, which went on forever. Because everyone, I think every Scotland player ended up getting interviewed, and like I was in the suite trying to decide who to put in it. And yeah, it was just like, honestly, it was nuts to do at the time. But I remember when obviously the last one went in, the whole of PQ erupted, like Pacific Key, the whole place went nuts. You heard everyone screaming from whatever room, and at the end of it, this was late at night, so this was just people who were in. There were cleaners on the street, just like pure shouting. You could hear all the pundits up the stairs going mental. We all burst out of our edit suites going mad, like couldn't believe it. We were all absolutely ecstatic. I remember jumping out my edit suite, absolutely, like I couldn't have been more elated. And that was it. We got like a burst of, like, we were all like cheering up for it, like to everyone. Went obviously socially distanced, they're on the other floors, but we're all like, yes, like all shouting. And then we went back in our edit suites and made sure it went out in the telly, obviously. And we did most of our celebrating the next day. But what a moment that was. That was to get to work on it as well, and to know that like what we did that night went out on TV and we broadcasted it, and yeah, it was the most important game that we'll ever cover. It was an amazing feeling. You'll know yourself, that feeling was just
I mean, what even made it even sweeter for us, right? So we had done the broadcast. I think we were live for about 3.5 hours off the top of my head. I mean, we all know it's going to be a long one if it's penalties included.
Exactly.
My mate Aaron Fraser had tweeted out that moment of us finding out the goal had been, or the penalty had been saved, sorry, and like he just posted our reaction, and the Scotland national team YouTube channel picked it up and put us in the same compilation as, say, like Andy Murray celebrating and like all the
way.
so we were like, pass the mic on my YouTube channel was on the same video as Andy Murray.
Andy Murray's reaction was huge.
Get in.
But no, we were doing a fans thing for it as well. We did a fans compilation because I was asking, like, I think I put it out on Twitter. I was like, please message me your reactions. And we had some fan reactions in the programme of ours, which for me, like, I remember kind of gathering those things, and I was like, this is so important. Like, we definitely need to get fans pure reacting, cheering, and it was great. But like, we saw there was a package on Reporting Scotland the next day, just literally of fan reactions that had been sent to us. It was just people going nuts. It was amazing. It was easily, like, just seeing how happy everyone was. And yeah, like, a lot of people there was like a couple of the people that I work with had decided maybe not to work the programme that night because they wanted to watch it in their house, or they wanted to watch it. And like, for me, like, I would have liked to have watched it with my dad, but getting to work it was like amazing.
More special, I'd say.
I agree, don't you think? Like, when you've got, especially streaming yourself, like, you'll know that you've got that reaction. Like, I'll remember how I reacted, like, for the rest of my life, running about the street in PQ, all of us, like, you know, react, like, celebrating, and yeah, I'll remember that for the rest of my life. Whereas, like, you know, watching it at home, you kind of feel like you've had a bit of a say in it. Like, not that you actually did anything, but you feel like you've definitely had a wee bit of input and you've made a good contribution to it. So getting to work it was really good.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who loves football and nothing else, I much prefer to actually have a say in things and just actually, like, my reactions filmed. Like, I think it's more entertaining for people watching at home as well.
It is, and I think getting the fan engagement, especially in that incident, like, you'll know that I do a lot of stuff with Sportscene, especially this season with fans. It's just something I'm really passionate about, and it's something I've kind of taken up, trying to get as much fan engagement as possible. And I think a lot of people have really, really enjoyed it and, like, respected that as well, because not a lot of kind of broadcasters are actually making the effort. You know, they're putting in crowd effects, but
that's it, really, isn't
there's
it?
There's no crowds, so it kind of. But I think for me, it's been so important to get fans engaged in Sportscene this season, and, like, you know, I've said this so many times, on, you know, fans are, like, literally the lifeblood of what we do. Like, we wouldn't have any viewers if people didn't watch we wouldn't have any viewers if fans didn't watch our programs. And I think fans definitely feel like I've had a lot of messages, like, when people have been getting involved, people who will message me and say, oh, like you said, people who I watched Sportscene since I was a wee girl. So now that I get to work on the programme, I, like, pinch myself every day. Never mind getting to put out Scotland-Serbia. Like, I pinch myself that I even get to work on a programme like Sportscene, never mind to actually get to put a massive game out in the telly. But even people who have watched Sportscene, maybe who used to watch it with their dads, or tuned into it every weekend, or watched it with their family, if it's been a part of their life at any point, when they get the opportunity to come on and say, you know, who do you think's going to win this weekend? What do you want it? They love it. And that, honestly, that spurs me on with everything I do, because I get so many nice messages saying, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to be on Sportscene today. Like, this is like a dream of mine. And I just thought, like, if we can do that, and if we can get fans involved, especially at such a challenging time where fans can't go watch their teams, it's so important. And I think, especially with what you do as well with the streaming, like, it makes such a difference to get to see people like yourself, people like fans want to watch other fans. Fans go to the grounds to be with other fans and to watch their team, because they know that everybody they're sitting with, everyone they're standing around, is just as passionate and loves it just as much as them. So getting to bring that in COVID times, especially with things like streaming, with getting fans involved with Sportscene, is so important. It's something I'm definitely passionate about, and it makes a big difference.
It's an absolutely fantastic answer. We've got a couple more questions. This is the make or break round. This is the away from the.
Another thing I'm not being prepped for. Gosh.
Don't worry. This is literally no pressure on the answer, so there's nothing to prep for really. I always throw this on a surprise because it's always better to see people on the spot. You have to make a match day playlist, but can only include 3 artists. Who's in it?
Right. Okay. Oh gosh. Right. So I actually do this probably Two Door Cinema Club is one. They've got a lot of
Yes.
Two Door Cinema Club is one that just because they have a lot of upbeat tunes. The tunes work. They've got a lot of like punchy beats. Like, for example, the closer last night I did, and it was like every time there was a goal going in, it hit the beat. Looks really good. Two Door Cinema Club is definitely one. Another one I'm going to say to you, which you're not going to like, but when you ask for a best bit of advice I've been given, I'm going back and I'm saying, when we do the closer, obviously, like, we have to clear the music, etc. Like, it has to be BBC clearable. And one of my producers said to me, if in doubt, choose John Newman. Now, I know that's going to be hit with some, listen, I'm not an avid John Newman listener. I'm not.
No, but it's always a staple in every broadcast.
Right. Exactly, that it's like, if in doubt, if you can't find a tune, pick John Newman. So that's something that I still think about. So John, he'd have to be in my artists, Big John, because we use him quite often, and like, you always know you've got John Newman as a fallback. If your first option didn't pan out. And oh god, I'm trying to think. Probably someone like Kasabian, or someone like, I think anyone really, like, we try and pick kind of like upbeat sort of indie sort of tunes, like they just something that's nice and upbeat and has a punchy beat. Like, we do sometimes use kind of house tunes, but they're not that great. But that would be my 3. If I had time to think about it, I could probably come up with a better answer for that. But I'm sticking by my first 2 Door Cinema Club and John Newman, because they have got me through some challenging times.
That's absolutely fair. I mean, some of the tunes I've heard on Sportscene, when I hear them for the first time, I instantly try and find out what they're called.
Aye.
Once, funnily enough, before Motherwell were playing Partick Thistle, there was a song by I think it was by Great Good Fine OK, and I hadn't heard, like, I'd spent about 2 or 3 years trying to find that song, because I'd been interviewed by Chris McLaughlin in the precursor, because it was such an uncertain time. Mark McGee was struggling as manager, and also he was like working with a Scotland setup, and I had said, why does he have to spend so much time with Scotland when it's the club that pays him that should be his priority, or something along those lines, something clever, and somehow it got added in by Sportscene, and it was that as the backing track. So I finally found that last year. I was like, yes, I found it. But I've got a whole playlist of songs that I don't think many people have actually heard, because I did student radio, so I was one of the first to probably play Lewis Capaldi, and I didn't even know it. Because my mate Jamie actually got the chance to interview him before he got big.
Oh, did he? Yeah, we had him in for our key sessions, and that was just after he'd taken off. But he was like, people knew him, and like, people loved him, mostly because of his social media though, like, not really because, like, I think that was how he properly took off at first. But even like, I know you're saying like you've got tunes that you go to for like the football. I've got a Sportscene playlist.
Like, I need a link to that. I need a link to that.
So I've got a Sportscene playlist of all the tunes I've used previously for the closer, so I can like keep a track of which ones I've used, but also tunes that I want to use. And like if I hear something on the like whether it's on the radio or if I hear it and it pops up in something, I'll add it to my Sportscene playlist, and it will be for something like for like a VT or for like a closer or for like just something. Sometimes we just need like 30 seconds just of a tune. But yeah, I've got a Sportscene playlist of all the tunes I've used on the closers.
And for the record, I know my mate Jamie, who's watching this right now, will be screaming at the screen. Please mention that I taught Lewis Capaldi how to get verified on Tinder, because that actually happened.
You taught him, or your pal?
My mate taught him how to get verified on Tinder.
That's a claim to fame if I've ever heard one.
That has to be a claim to fame. Brilliant. Brilliant. And the final question is: you're standing in the pick and mix aisle of a sweet shop. You can only pick 3 sweets to put in your bag. What do you choose and why?
I can't tell you the last time I've got a pick and mix.
Me neither, but it's always a good conversation starter.
It is. Okay, so probably an really unpopular choice, but I'll just go with that first because I'll get the battering out the way first. See the wee toffees, like the squares of like toffee. Do you remember them? They weren't toffee, they were like soft, and they almost always tasted like they'd gone off. Like no, they were wee brown squares of toffee. Yeah. I always put them in my pick and mix bag. Probably like a bonbon of some sort, like a blue bonbon would be one. Blue raspberry bonbon, yeah. Absolute standard. And then something fizzy, like sour fizzy sweet, like the sour cherries or something like that. Yeah. would be my thing. But I don't eat a lot of sweets. I'm not a very sweets person, but this has kind of put me in the mood. I can kind of see myself taking it to shops to get something.
Of course.
What are yours? I'm not doing a pick and mix selection and not finding out what yours are.
That's absolutely fair enough. For me, right now, I would go with a strawberry bonbon.
Oh, okay.
Baby dolphin.
Oh, surely not.
Yeah.
Really? They don't taste of anything. They taste of nothing.
They don't taste of anything if it's just one you put in your mouth. Then that is absolutely fine. And the final one, it's got to be a different flavour. So I'd probably go with a cola bottle.
Cola bottle? A fizzy cola bottle or just a normal?
A fizzy one, because too many of the sort of ones, they can get very sickly very quickly.
They can. I think a cola bottle's fine if it's like a big, the big giant cola bottles you get. They're
one
all
of the
right.
10p ones, yeah.
Yeah, but one of the 10p ones. I've not heard that since I was at school. When you used to go into the shop and you would be like, "Can I have 2 of them, please? Can I have?" like the days where Freddos were like 10p. Now what are they? 25p.
Yeah, it's absolutely awful now.
Inflation. Yeah, but that's I remember going into the shop when you were just after school. Can I have a 10p one? Can I have that? Take me right back to my childhood.
Of course. But Arran, I would just like to thank you for coming on today. I really enjoyed that.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me. It's been really good fun.
Yeah, great. And thanks everyone for watching at home, and I hope you enjoyed for sticking around for this very extended episode of the Gog Pod. Thanks to Arran Hannah for coming on today. And without further ado, I'm goggsysaan. I bet it was you were. See you later, guys. Take care.